So we've been talking about CNN's list of the most, what they think are the most likely presidential contenders of 2020. We've been talking a little bit about our own list and some of the people that might be on our list. I brought up Nina Turner. I brought up Tulsi Gabbard. Now, and
then I was just talking before the break about electability and how, and I'm legitimately wrestling with this. You know, to what degree do you want someone who has some electability, a threshold of electability that permits them to be part of the conversation? And so these are the things that I wrestle with. You know, like it'd be like saying, well, you know, my dad would be a great president because he's really right on all the policies. He understands the legislative process perfectly well. Mark, your dad isn't going to win. So can we find somebody else who can maybe be more relevant to the conversation? I don't mean to diminish any of the candidates or the names we're talking about.
Sure.
But I think it is part of this. That is to say, someone's viability as a presidential candidate.
So I have a few thoughts on this. So first of all, you know, when people say, oh, well, Bernie couldn't have won and this, here's the thing. A Republican populist, I put that in air quotes because that is in fact an oxymoron. But Donald Trump ran on this false idea of right-wing populism and people bought into it.
Right.
People bought into it. People in the Rust Belt bought into it. So it's not unrealistic to think that if a fake populist won, a real populist couldn't win. It's actually very realistic to say a real populist would win because the Democrats didn't put up an actual grassroots populist against Donald Trump. They put up the most establishment candidate maybe ever in the history of the party, and she lost. So the idea of real populism, something a Nina Turner brings, something a Tulsi Gabbard brings, something a Bernie Sanders brings, it's certainly, I think, very realistic to say that that could win in 2020. Another thing, as far as just practicality, using Tulsi as a for instance, Tulsi Gabbard, she is an excellent speaker, first of all, has the policy ideas, and she has a military background. That's going to appeal. Now, when I say that's going to appeal to a lot of people, and I don't mean the moderate Republicans, the people Chuck Schumer talks about. I mean the people that really feel like voting doesn't matter, like it's not going to make their lives better because they've suffered under 40 years of neoliberalism and they're just tired. I think those people, a Tulsi Gabbard, really has an opportunity to appeal to those types of people.
Okay.
And she's a young woman, she's well-spoken, she's incredibly likable, and she's got the ideas.
She's terrific.
I think somebody like that is the full package. Now, the establishment doesn't want her, but in Nina Turner, you could, a lot of the same things are very true for Nina Turner. I don't think Nina Turner has a military background, at least not to my knowledge, but all those same things are true to her.
Yeah, I was just thinking, as you said, military background of what they did to John Kerry. I still can't believe that John Kerry, who legitimately went to Vietnam, okay, this guy took bullets in Vietnam. There are guys dying all around him, okay? He comes back, he runs against a war or military evader, okay, in George Bush. I mean, he technically signed up for some Texas National Guard or whatever, but
right.
And somehow the powers associated with the GOP machine were able to demonize John Kerry sufficiently to suggest that he wasn't a military hero. And I mean, this is a guy who went to effing Vietnam. You see, and he's from a wealthy family, or wealthy enough he could have gotten out of the out of war.
But he had 3 Purple Hearts.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So as you say, military, there's
a lot about him I don't like, but yes, that is all true.
I hear you. But all I'm thinking about is how effectively the GOP machine eviscerates Democratic candidates. And some of them deserve to be eviscerated for various reasons. But it's who can survive that process, that industry of politics. It's brutal.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and this kind of goes into the deeper issue of I really would love to see, I would really love to see a country where our political seasons, quote unquote, are much different, are way shorter, for instance, are about 6 weeks, are policy-based, are just kind of back and forth sparring, kind of like what they do in England.
That's right.
And I'm not saying those countries, Right. They have it way better. Now, they're not perfect. The BBC is not perfect. Politics over there are not perfect. I'm not suggesting they are.
But there's a lot less money.
There's a lot less money, and it's a much more transparent thing. It's a much more issues-based sparring back and forth. And there's a couple understood truths they have that I really wish we had over here. I mean, you can find footage of Theresa May, the right wing, and Jeremy Corbyn debating about the NHS. At least they have an agreement that the NHS should exist.
Right.
I mean, she has some right-wing ideas that would definitely harm it, but they're in agreement that the NHS should exist. If you brought that over to the United States, we would have the Paul Ryan wing and basically just the Republicans in general and some Democrats that would argue that something like that shouldn't even exist.
Yeah, the thing that happens here, and again, I'll go back to it for the last time, if it doesn't make sense, like the length of the political season doesn't make sense, it's about money. And here's how it works in the length of the political season. The things that benefit from a lengthy political season are associated oftentimes and largely with media, because you need to get out there with a media presence, you need to make all kinds of media buys, you need to do a number of things associated with launching a movement for your candidacy over a long period of time. That's a lot of money. So, for example, in the case of that media, local television stations and radio stations, but particularly television, they benefit enormously. They almost live political season to political season.
Right.
So they depend on a long campaign, and they're a real power. So, and that's just one thing. The length of the political season is a part and works for that political machine, and that, I think, mitigates ever there being changes in the way we do politics, at least in that regard in this country.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean,
it's just money. It's a
well, and that's the thing. That's worth pointing out because it benefits the media even in the independent sector. So what we're actually saying right now actually hurts our own interest as content creators, but nonetheless, and we certainly don't see what the corporate media sees. I mean, it's very much apples and oranges, but there is still like a vague connection. And so, but still, I'd rather have a better political season with better candidates than the circus we have now.
Of course, but you're right. The horse race, the longer it is, benefits.
It benefits all media, even down to the independent, just so, we're being totally transparent where we're at.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed this clip. There's a whole hour and a half of aggressive progressives waiting for you at the Young Turks Network. Become a member and get access to all the content.